Hello and welcome to Class 9 of sil201 Intermediate Silhouette Effects with me, Ben Brownlee. And this week we are going to be taking a look at the 3D functionality in Silhouette Effects. So we've got our clip here which was shot stereoscopically, and we have split this off into two separate files. We have a left eye and a right eye. So if we have a look in my project over here, we have the left eye and the right eye here. And if we're dealing with stereoscopic EXR files, then we'll only see one file here and everything else will just sort of pop in automatically. So the first thing is, how do we set up our session for stereoscopic work? And the most straightforward way is to come up to the left channel, and we're going to then just start up a new session as we would do normally. And I have this one right here. So now we need to prep this up to make sure that Silhouette Effects knows we're working stereoscopically. So up into our node list over here, we can come to our media property up here, which is the original media file, the main media file that we've got. And we now can choose our primary left and our secondary right files here. And this will give us a drop down of any other media we have loaded in. So I'll come into my right view here, and as soon as I do that, we get a whole new series of controls coming up the top here. So this is our stereoscopic view controls that we now have access to. And I hope you have your anaglyph glasses ready, because if I click on my anaglyph up here, this gives us a red cyan view of the 3D file, so we can just go through and start to check it. And that's all looking good. Now I've already had to flop this shot for the right eye, so you can see that this image sequence here is called right flop, because we can't actually compensate for that in Silhouette Effects itself. So even if we were to click on flop horizontal here or flop vertical, this doesn't respect our individual left and right views. This will just flop or flip the session itself. The same with the time shift. This time shifts the entire media rather than letting us sort of slip individual views, as we might need to do at some point. So the upshot is that we need to make sure that the footage is prepped, or at least given to us in a left-right format, so we don't have to do anything else to it. Now, if you're working with Silhouette Effects 4.2 and above, you also have the choice not just of using anaglyph glasses, but using an interlaced 3D monitor as well. So if you have that passive interlace system on your 3D monitor, you'll be able to select that as well. But at the moment, this system's running 4.1, haven't updated it yet, so that's why we're not seeing the other option up here. Cool, but we can come in now and we can look at the left or right view, and you can see there is a slight difference between these two views, not just the sort of difference that you obviously expect, the offset. We can see that there's also a color difference which doesn't affect us at all, and I can also see that there's a little vertical shift going on which will actually come and affect us a bit later. So when this shot was actually recorded, there was a slight alignment problem that we're going to have to compensate for in post. So as well as seeing the individual eyes, we can also look at the left and right, and we can see, if I hit F, just as normal, this will fit, zoom into the viewer there, and we can look at them either horizontally or vertically stacked. And this is going to be a useful view when we're coming to finally check our progress. Okay, so let's get on to the good stuff in the roto. So let's come into the roto node and hit F to fit this back in. And there's a couple of different ways that we can get this done. The way that I tend to look at this is to try and break things down and work on the left eye first, and then transfer as much of that information over to the right eye. And Silhouette Effects has some really nice tools for making that transition as painless as possible. So it doesn't take twice as long to roto stereoscopic 3D as it does to do 2D. Cool. Now, it's really important that we get our hierarchy in the object list built up in a very sane, very ordered manner. much more so than when we're working with 2D. With 2D, you can get a little bit more kind of rough and ready. If you're the only one who's going to be working on it, you're going to make yourself, make life difficult for yourself. But you can get away with not having an as structured approach. Whereas when we're working with stereoscopic 3D, if you don't have a good structured object list and a good structured layer list here, you're going to be in for a whole load of pain. It's going to be make things very impossible, not just for you, but for the guys that you're handing off the work to afterwards. And along with that, it's actually very important that we get a good idea of how we're going to break these objects up into. So, do we need to give just a single shape for the entire bike and rider, or are we breaking this up into smaller objects? Are we doing the front of the bike as separate to the rider's body and the rider's helmet maybe? And, do we need to take these wing mirrors out as a separate object as well? All these things need to be thought about before we even start to do our roto. It's just going to, again, take so much time out of the overall process. Cool. So let's come up and we'll start as we would do normally. I'm going to take out the headlamp and create a new layer there. Come into my tracker. And let's get this tracked through. Sharpen this up just a little bit. It shouldn't give us any problems whatsoever. Great. So, you thought that trackers were going to be useful before. They're absolutely invaluable here. Let's get rid of that. And come in. And create my headlamp. Zoom in a little bit. And the tracker's obviously done a lot of the work for us, but it can't compensate for the change in perspective. I suppose it could if we'd used the planar tracker. And we're picking up the, the natural movement again here. And that's looking pretty good. Got a little bit up there. It's probably a bit of motion blur. Cool. So we'll play that back. That's looking fine. All right, so now we've got this. Let's call this one main lamp. Now we've got our left view sorted out. So you can see that we've got the left there, just handily for us in the object list. And you can see we've been working in the left-hand view here. So what we want to do is we want to be able to quickly take that work that we've got here on the left-hand view and transfer that over to the right eye. Now, if I select any of the shapes, I can come in, right-click, and we can either duplicate the shape, and it'll just pop it in and pop it into my right eye here, or I can duplicate that up into a new layer. And again, we want to really keep working in layers as well. So if I take my right eye view here and play this through, a couple of things are going to be immediately obvious. One is that the way that we copied over the shape, we've lost all of the tracking marks on our layer itself. Because we copied the shape itself, it's only copied over the keyframes on the shape itself. And obviously it's not lining up even at the first frame. So we've got the obviously we've got the stereo offset from the stereoscopic work. So let's go back into the left-hand view, and I'm going to get rid of this layer, and we come to our headlamp layer itself, and we can duplicate the whole layer up, and this will give us headlamp 1 and show us the right here. Now when it comes to naming conventions, we need to try and figure out something that's going to work for us. Obviously we can't just call it headlamp R, because our naming conventions, or the ones that I've been using anyway up till now, R has been right for screen right rather than right hand view. So obviously in Silhouette Effect we can see it's right because we've got right and left going down here straight away. But when we take that out, when we take these shapes out into another program, this name is not going to follow through, or not going to be easy to follow through. So your naming convention may change, and this could be a house thing, but I got RV for right view and LV for left view. Now when we do come to render this out, Silhouette Effects will add the -R and -L to the end of the file names anyway. So rendering out image sequences, this stage might be a little bit redundant for you, because Silhouette Effects will add that information to the file name anyway. But for now, let's just press on. But seriously, anything that helps to make this just a tiny bit easier is worth doing. So let's come back into our right hand view now, and we'll play that through. Cool, and that's taken on the tracking as well as the shape. So now all we've got is the problem of the offset, the left and right view offset. And this is where Silhouette Effects is going to really help us out. If I click on my headlamp RV, and we now have our stereo offset controls up here. And let's just come over to my stereoscopic alignment button up here. And this is going to show us the difference between the two views. So if I come in and start to change this here, you'll see that when I'm getting closer, this will turn grey to show us that the two layers are matching up properly. Now usually we'd only have to worry about the horizontal offset here, but as we talked about earlier, we also have a horizontal offset as well, so we need to think about that too. So once those are as close as they can be, and I'm looking specifically at the object that I'm rotoing here and trying to get that matching up perfectly, I can come out of the stereoscopic alignment mode, hit play, and this should now be, if not exactly where we want it to be, somewhere a bit closer. So here I'm going to have to actually come into the keyframes there and just tweak these up. So not all of this alignment problem can be blamed on the rig. Some of it, probably most of it, is actually the natural changes that we get from the two different views. So it is actually rather trivial now to come in and just fix this up, just using the existing keyframes as our guide. Because we've done the hard part, we've figured out where the motion is, where the natural motion is. Cool. And that should be good, except it's not quite. There's a significant bump there, but I think we're just going to have to add a keyframe there. we are getting some significant changes between these two, so I'm wondering whether there was a bigger problem on the day. But that seems all right now. So we take up the 2-up view there. We can see that's working, and we want to see what's going on just on the single view. Let's go to the left, turn on anaglyphic, turn on our composite, and there we can check with our glasses to make sure that there's no weird stuff happening there. I can see there is a little bit of drift going on. On here, which I'm not too happy about. But we'll leave that for now and we'll move on. Okay, let's come over to my left eye roto. So what I've got here, actually let's go back to the start and turn off the anaglyph here and then come back to our left eye roto. There we go. Cool. So that's just a little problem. We're in anaglyph mode and we didn't have a 3D session set up. Just obviously shows the whole eye in red. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got a slightly more finished version of the shot. We've got our helmet going on. We've got our body work going on. Let's undo or unlock this. And we've got the front of the bike, which is just a headlamp here. And the bike right side here. You can see this has been plane tracked, so that's why you're getting the nice distortion going on the layer. Cool, so let's come back over to our main footage in the nodes. And we'll come in and set up our right view again now and come back to the roto list. And we'll check out the body here. So let's come in, have the body selected, not double clicked, selected, and duplicate that up. And we will call this RV LV. You can start to see why, almost immediately now, oops, didn't want to drag that in there. Yeah, almost immediately now we can see why having the V at the end makes such a big difference when we've got right arm, left arm floating around all over the place. So RV and left and LV just help to clear up that a little bit. Cool, and we'll unlock the ones on the right. Cool, and let's come over to the right hand view and see what's going on. So we need to select the layer itself. This is why we need to have things. This is why we need to have things in a layer, because our stereo offset will only work in a layer. Come over here, and obviously the offset is going to be slightly different for each of the layers. Cool. I do think there was actually quite a big problem with the alignment here, because I really don't need to do any horizontal alignment. So there's something not quite right at the front there. Cool. All right. But let's turn that off now, and we'll just turn off the visibility on the arms and just concentrate on the chest. Once we duplicate a layer, Not only does it duplicate the layer and all the keyframes and all the shapes that are inside it, but it also links those shapes together. So if we come up to left-right view now, and I make a change on one side, it also is going to change the other view as well. But if I'm in right hand edit mode, or right eye edit mode only, I can come in and just do the same sort of craziness. There we go. Come over to left eye view, and that won't have made any difference whatsoever. So let's undo that a little bit there, and let's just get this matching up nicely. Another cool thing, or a cool reason to go into the left-right view, let's do that now, is to make sure that we are getting point-to-point matching, not just between keyframes here, but also in the two different eyes now. So we don't want to be, shifting things away too much or too far if we can avoid it. So let's come back here, plump that in there. And I'm going to use the existing keyframes as my sort of base points. Again, just, because we know that this is historically where the problems have been, or where the action and the animation has been. And it also saves a lot of time. So I can't remember where I went to on one view. Let's look at both views, and I know I need to go back out there. And a lot of the time you'll actually be fairly surprised at how little work actually needs going on, or actually needs to be done once we have the offset done. Obviously, when perspective changes happen, there are slight changes between both eyes. But we can get this done relatively painlessly. As we play that back, I'm probably going to get that same problem that I had with just the headlamp. If it's a systemic problem with the way that the two views were lined up, then I'd be very surprised if we didn't have that problem again on this footage, or on this shape. But also, just the general character of the two eyes could be a little different, because obviously we can see more of one side, a slightly different perspective of the same object. Cool, and let's take a look at the anaglyphic view there. Just to my composite. Turn off the arms. Just to check that out, just to make sure that we don't have any of the background just popping through. Cool. Okay, so when it comes to rendering out, we again have a couple of different workflow issues. So if we want to take out the whole thing just as one, say the whole roto just as one, say that for example I had totally finished up my my entire shape, which was to bring in the entire motorcyclist as one complete shape, and I'd done all of that. If I was then to render my active node out, then I'm given a chance to let's turn some of this off, of how we're going to take this out. For example, if I was taking it out OpenEXR, I can take out both the views as one combined file, and here we've got the dominant view, either left or right. Actually shows us which view applications that can't read the stereoscopic EXR will show. So it will either show the left hand view or the right hand view if it can't read both of them. Or we can obviously take it out to whatever file file type that we want. Let's take it out just to JPEG, just to show you something else. Take out the alpha only, and we'll do both views here. And let's call this one all. And that'll quickly render out. So we take a look here, we now have our left hand view and our right hand view with the R and the L, as we would expect in the file name. But if on the other hand I'd finished off the entire shape here and we needed to take out individual parts, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Because if I come in and let's just select these two shapes again, I render my shapes to channels, render my layers to separate files here. And again, do the same thing. We want to take out both views. And we will call this one layers. And do exactly the same thing. This might be flicking too fast for you to actually see, but we'll see this properly in a moment. But what's happening is that it is rendering out both views of the same shape. So here, if we have a look, we go down to layers. We've got our left layer, our left view left, so to speak, which is looking perfectly fine. Then we get to the right hand view of that same shape, and obviously that doesn't have a right hand view, so it's just giving us black. But on the other hand, we come down to the right view left, that's got no data in it, but the right view right actually does. The right view right is obviously the one that we want to keep out. So what do we do here? So a good way is doing this in two separate passes. So we hide all of the right hand views and we only show the left hand views. Then we render out those layers to separate files, and we'll call this AA. So it's at the top. We'll only take out the left hand view. We'll render that, and this will then go through and render obviously all of our shapes. Then when it's done with that, we turn off all of the left hand views and only have the visibility on the right hand views, and we do exactly the same, except this time we will call this one, actually we'll keep this the same name. This time we'll just come out with the right hand views and render that. Obviously we've only done a right hand view of the body. So in this way we've come in and we've actually saved a whole load of time by just taking out the left-hand view. So that saves a bit of time in the long run. Cool, so that was a look at the 3D stuff that we have in Silhouette FX. And there's some, it seems fairly straightforward. A lot of it is just about, making sure that we do have our left and right views set up properly before we start going and, going through, working on, one of the views first. I would tend to go with the left-hand view first, then linking and offsetting those individual shape layers using the stereo offset here. Now this is keyframeable, so we can start to keyframe this stereo offset if you want to. So for example, if the object was moving significantly from the background up into the foreground, the separation there is obviously going to change over time. So instead of coming in and making a whole load of different keyframes on the shapes themselves, on all of the individual shapes, it might be a bit of a time saver to come in and keyframe the stereo offset as the object moves closer and the separation becomes more visible. On the other hand, if things are sort of drifting back and forth a lot of the time, just in small different ways, say for example this bike is moving a little bit closer to the camera and a little bit further away afterwards, if it's just doing something like that, you might find it actually easier just to do the keyframing as you would do normally. But of course it's nice having this split out over here, because if there is a significant move, you can find yourself adding, again, far too many keyframes on the individual shape layers when a big overall move is much more expected and necessary. Great, well that's it for another class. I look forward to seeing you in the forums as always. So post all your questions there. My name's Ben Brownlee, and I'll see you in the next class. Thanks, bye now.